This is the seventh in a series of 8 lessons on A Course in Miracles. And I'm working with the textbook, and tonight I am working with chapters 22 through 27. Some of the ideas contained in those chapters. And for those of you who will be listening on tape, and you will be the larger audience, I'm looking here this evening in our new sanctuary at Unity Church of Today to a sizable, excited, beautiful group of people, some 500 or 600 people. God has no secrets. The universe has no secrets from you. Everything that has ever been known on this earth or in any galaxy by any being of any kind is available to you or to me. But sometimes we wonder why we are here on this earth, leading the lives that we lead. And there's an idea that somewhere down a long and miserable, dusty road, that after God has led you through a world of misery, that He'll be standing there at the end of that journey waiting to tell you why He did all of this to you. That's not the way it is at all. You and I can begin to discover why all of this has been happening to us anywhere along the way. You don't have to wait till the end of the journey. This is the end of the journey. This is that now moment in which discovery and revelation can take place. The intellect, that human state of consciousness, can never understand why our lives are the way they are. The intellect can never understand God or develop a relationship with God. The intellect, our purely human intellect, the ego, has no place to go. Its journey is in a circle. It has no way to go. Now, when you come to the place where the branch in the road is quite apparent, when you get to that fork in the road, and some of us perhaps are there right now, and it doesn't have to be because things are all that bad. This past Sunday here, standing before you, I rededicated my life. I started my life all over again. My life is better than it has ever been. My life is incredibly good. I love my life. I love everything about my life, almost. A few things I'm working on. But every now and then I get to a fork in the road and I stop and start all over again and rededicate. I find a new beginning. But you come to the place when you simply cannot go straight ahead any longer. You cannot forge ahead the way that you've been going, and you have to make a choice. And that's good. Frequently our problems or apparent failures, disappointments bring us to that fork in the road. And when that happens, do not rebel or cry. That is a joyful moment in your life. And I'm looking at some of you. I have talked to you when you were there. I have heard your cry in the night, and I've seen the tears running down your cheeks. And later I've watched you smile, glad that you reached that fork in the road so that you made a new decision, because inevitably the making of a new choice leads to new and exciting moments. You can dry your tears and release your suffering. The whole purpose of coming this far was to decide which branch you would follow. The whole purpose of everything that's been happening to you has been for your good, but forcing you to take another tack, forcing you to let go of the system of ideas that you've been using. Always forcing us onward and upward, ultimately forcing us to choose God rather than ourselves, to choose God rather than the choices that we have made in the world. Now, to choose God does not mean that you have no worldly life. It only means that your worldly life becomes better than your worldly life has ever been, more exciting. You don't even have to give up sex. Isn't that exciting news? Now, the moment that you make a new decision, the first few steps, or days, or weeks, can seem very hard. There is a momentary exultation and excitement. Everything's going to be just great. And it is until tomorrow morning. And something happens. I had a letter this week from two very dear people that I know who were recently here with us. They live in a distant state. They came to visit and their lives were changed, and they rededicated themselves and left on a high. I'll tell you, their feet weren't touching the ground, and then there followed a Great Depression. That was then followed by exaltation. You know, if you keep on keeping on, you will get there. You will get there by the energy of the universe. As long as you know that there's no turning back, as long as you commit yourself and don't turn back, don't surrender to depression or any other negative inner force. Also remember the loveliness that you will see, and believe with all your heart that you'll be walking with a power, with an intelligence, with the presence that will do the things for you that you simply cannot do for yourself. When you choose this higher path, you're actually selecting an energy that will accomplish for you that which you cannot do for yourself. And I tell you, that's a wise choice. Do I choose the way in which I have only me? Or do I choose the higher path in which the Spirit of God is my power? Now, the memory of God comes to the quiet mind. The mind that begins to find its peace in quiet moments like now. An awareness of God cannot come where there is conflict. For a mind at war with itself or with other persons cannot experience that eternal gentleness of the Spirit, and it is only in that gentleness of the Spirit that we will discover our higher nature, or that we will experience God. Did you not realize that you are at war with yourself? Well, your ego is at war with yourself. In previous lessons we've been talking about that war. The ego always marches to defeat because it thinks that it can triumph over you, but it cannot. It ultimately cannot. The war against yourself is almost over, and the journey's end is at the place of peace, the moment that you become willing to be reestablished regularly in a place of peace. Like now. The war is almost over. You see, conflict must be between two forces, two opposing forces. But conflict cannot exist between one power and nothingness, and that's exactly what we're dealing with. There's only one power in the universe. There's only one power. And nothingness. The ego is nothing. It is the illusion of something, but it is not anything. And you who are the beloved of God are not an illusion. You are real. You're going to be around a long time. If you could but see yourself, you would see your perfection. And that's what you're in the process of doing, discovering a state of beingness that is higher than the world or the intellect has seen. Now, peace is the state where love abides and seeks to share itself. When we become willing to love our lives, and loving our lives means when we become willing to stop complaining or to stop joining other people in their feisty little ways, rebelling. You know, just the normal negative comments that people make about life and others, to begin to separate from that kind of thinking and to become willing to remember who we are, to become willing to remember that life is good, to become willing to remember that life is good in the midst of a day that's going bad. Can you do that? Well, you can do it. I know that you can do it because you've done it. Instead of letting the so-called bad thing take charge of your consciousness, to practice remembering, even saying to yourself that all is well. Early on in my spiritual life, I used to carry little slips of paper with things that I had written on them in my pockets to remind me that life was good. Because I knew that before the day was over, there would be many things that would be working with my mind to tell me that it really wasn't so good and that was really not so nice, and that it was time for me to lose my temper or become depressed or something, and I would have to find a reminder that this was not so, that peace is the state where love abides, and that I had to love my life, I had to love myself, I had to love the people, especially the ones that did not love me. I had to stay out of conflict. And I cannot tell you how difficult it was. I'd lived a life of conflict. I went looking for it. And if it was not there, I generated it. I caused it. You've heard me say I could walk into a bar and just stand there, and conflict would arise. And I had to work against that way of thinking. The laws of chaos can be brought to light, though never understood. Now, by the laws of chaos, I don't mean that the universe has laws of chaos. It does not. But these are imaginary laws, laws that we have concocted in our thinking. The first chaotic law is that truth is different for everyone. This concept maintains that each one of us is separate and has a different set of thoughts that set him off from other persons. I'm different from you. You're different from me. Different systems abide. I'll do it my way. You do it your way. That's chaotic. There's but one mind, one power, one system, one universal system. And my identity comes and my peace comes when I can accept this fact that we are all working toward resolving our conflicts and becoming one with that universal presence. There's only one mind, and we're parts of it. Now, think how this concept would interfere with the first principle of miracles. And remember, we're doing a course of miracles, and I've said to you many times that miracles are natural, and if miracles are not happening to you, there's something wrong, and let's get it fixed. That's why we're in class tonight, is to get ourselves fixed so that miracles become the order of the day, the order of the hour. The erroneous belief that there are different degrees of truth or strength among problems. The idea that some problems are more difficult to handle than other problems. And of course, the problems that are always the most difficult to handle are yours. Isn't that true? God doesn't have too much trouble with Geraldine's problems, but boy, when it comes to your problems, it's not true. To the Holy Spirit, to the Spirit of God, there is no order of difficulty. One is as easy as the other. There's no mighty problem and no mini problem. Errors of any kind can be corrected because they are untrue. And when we bring them into the truth, they merely disappear. You see, nothing can not resist something. And an error is nothing. And it can be corrected. And the moment that it's corrected, then the problem disappears. One of our basic problems is that we deal with effects rather than with causes. And when we begin to relate to the universal mind, to the Holy Spirit, to the Spirit of God, we are working with within that inner realm of causes. And it has infinite intelligence and infinite power. If we work on the outside with effects, we'll never solve anything. And that's why we never solve anything. What any person has done is thus interpreted as irrevocable by the intellect. And God himself is powerless to overcome that problem. And that leads directly to the third preposterous belief that seems to make chaos eternal, that if God cannot be mistaken, he must accept man's belief in what man is and hate him for it. Let me see if I can explain that. You were created, living here upon this earth, and before you're 6 or 7 years of age, you should have decided to be different than you are. But obviously you didn't make that choice. You didn't make the right choices. And so the one who created you sees that you've not made the right choice, and therefore has come to hate you for the choice that you've made. Well, maybe he doesn't want to cast you into that fiery place to live throughout a billion years. But God has no choice because you didn't make the right choice. Now, if that's not absurd thinking, you tell me what is absurd thinking. You see how the fear of God is reinforced by this third principle of chaos? Now it becomes impossible to turn to God for help in misery, for now he has become the enemy who caused our misery and to whom appeal is useless. It's an absurdity. At any moment, you can change your life by changing your own thinking, and you'll find that whether you change your thinking or not, God is God. God doesn't care. You know why God doesn't care whether you change your thinking right now? Do you have any idea why? Because you're going to sometime. And if you want to put it off, that's your little tiddly-do. But I promise you that Spirit is not going to suffer. You're going to be the one that suffers if you put it off, but you'll ultimately come to it. It's inevitable. That's the only thing that's inevitable. You and I will change. You and I will ultimately conform, willingly and joyously. Now, this leads to the fourth law of chaos, which, if the first three are accepted, then the fourth one must also be true. And this seeming law is the belief that you have what you have taken away from others. By this law, the human intellect believes that someone else's loss becomes your gain. If you can be the first one there to get the most out of the pot, then you have gained. Or if you can slyly take advantage of another person, you can reap your reward at someone else's disadvantage. Or it works the other way too. If you really believe this, and you're a kind person, you will not fully accept your own good, because obviously if you accept your good, you're taking it away from someone else, aren't you? Have you ever prayed and then said, "Oh God, I really feel guilty about this, giving me all of this? Why, my gosh, think of all of the people in China or Haiti or Puerto Rico or down the street. I wouldn't dare accept my good because I'll be taking it away from someone else, and that's ridiculous. All that the Father has, that the universe has, belongs to everyone, and it is my responsibility to accept it." That's a responsibility. One of our responsibilities is to come to the place that we overlook or rise above the battleground. This earth is a battleground. Where you were today was a battleground. Promise you it was. Now, a responsibility that we have is to be lifted up. That's why I came here tonight. It's to be lifted up. I want to be lifted up out of my ordinary human consciousness. I want to be lifted up out of the mind that relates joyfully to problems, that likes to fight and get caught up in arguments. And the moment that you're lifted up into a higher consciousness, and you can't be lifted up into a higher consciousness unless one is already there. See, there's an assumption that there's a higher state of mind that already exists if you're going to be lifted up into it. Notice that I didn't say that you're going to create a higher consciousness. We would never be able to do that. But the moment that we choose the higher consciousness, then a miracle takes place. The miracle is that from that higher level of life, you look out upon a different world. That where a moment ago you can see it. You can even remember how you thought when you were there. But you can see that there really was no problem there. Yes, there was. The condition exists. But from this higher place of peace, you know with certainty that a solution is unfolding. Have you had that experience lately? The experience of being transformed or lifted up into a different state of mind in which immediately solutions began to flow. Miracles happen in your life. Well, that's how miracles occur. You go to the place inside yourself where miracles already are. Remember that the motivation of this course is the attainment and the keeping of that state of peace, that state of mind. And given this state, the mind is quiet, and the condition in which God is remembered is attained, and you can walk with a quiet mind all day long. I've had long days in my life in which I've walked through some of the darndest things, and I was at peace. And then, for the slightest reason, I would lose it. You know, working to keep it, and then suddenly it was gone. And then I'd have to bring it back. See, that's what we're working for, is to stay at that place of peace, because this is where miracles occur. It is not possible to achieve that higher consciousness unless you're willing to question every value, every concept, every precept that you hold. Unless you're willing to question yourself. You've heard me say that in the first months and years, and even now in my spiritual life, I have to watch myself. I have to question myself. I have to be sure that I'm not holding on to some limiting ideas, defending my own thinking. I don't want to defend my thinking. I want to become a part of a higher level of consciousness. Now, where could your peace arise except from forgiveness? Forgiveness. Achieving a state of consciousness that does not even need to forgive because it does not build accounts against other persons. Now, for a long time, it's necessary for us to forgive them. And remember when Jesus, the master teacher, said, forgive them. He meant go through the process. As a matter of fact, if you haven't been doing so well lately, if you've prayed a lot and nothing has happened, if you've lost some of the magic and some of the joy of your own life, check yourself out. And you might discover that you have really built up a case against somebody. Something's just been gnawing on you, just been eating you up quietly, very quietly. And you haven't admitted it to yourself. And look at it and laugh and forgive that person or those people. If you forgive enough, in time you won't have to forgive enough. You won't have to forgive at all. You'll be at the place that someone who really has offended you can come and ask for forgiveness, and you will say, I'm sorry, but I can't forgive you because I don't hold it against you. You really won't say that. You will tell them that you forgive them because it would be offensive to say, I'm so much more spiritual than you are that, that I don't have to release these things. And by that time you'll be so loving that you would not say that. You would say, of course I will. It might be difficult, but I'll do it. But it won't be difficult. The Spirit, the Christ in you, is very still. That higher self knows where you're going and knows how to get there, knows why you're going. And as you become still, you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to pray for God to send you a telegram. You just stay in that place of peace. Living in now moments. The secret is living in now moments. Living in now moments. Living in now moments. Living in peace. And remembering that nothing is ever lost to you in all of the universe, nor shall ever be lost to you. You've never lost an opportunity. Your golden days have not passed. And the passing of some person from your life by death or divorce, or maybe they didn't even marry you in the first place, cannot cause you to lose your good. You haven't lost your good. Now, suffering wants to make you think you have, but you haven't. So you have to remember that nothing that God has created can ever lose its identity. And God has laid before you, lovingly, everything that is yours forever. Your life is already complete if you can begin to be lifted up into that higher consciousness that believes in completeness. We fracture ourselves in so many ways. I used to think I was a Gemini. That's 1/12 of a person. I'm not a Gemini. I was born on June the 11th, but I am a whole person with all of the fully formed positive concepts and attributes of a whole person. Your higher nature, the Christ in you, does not inhabit a body, and yet that higher self is in you. And thus it must be that you are not within a body. Well, yes you are, you kind of are. But the thought is, stop identifying with that body. Stop seeing that body as you, and your body's getting old, and therefore you are too. And stop comparing your body to someone else's body, either favorably or unfavorably. You're not your body. You are spirit. The body needs no healing. But the mind that thinks it is a body is very sick. You see, if my mind still thinks I'm a body, then it needs to be healed. That's the great healing, is to come to see that I am not a body. And if my mind is healed, if my spirit is healed, then some remarkable things can begin to happen. If my spirit is at peace, and if the spirit in me believes that its energy is transforming the body, and that the body must respond, The body is nothing of itself. It is an emanation of my spirit. And if my spirit is emanating love and beauty and wholeness, then the body will take care of itself. And one day I'm going to step out of this body. But will I lose anything when I step out of my body? Will I lose my identity? Not unless my body is my identity. So my body is not my identity. And this requires a little thinking and a little working, because your mother gave birth to a body. And she looked at that little body and said, I gave birth to a 7-pound body. And then she named it you. And all of your days you've been that body growing, sometimes really growing, and then that becomes... You are the means that God has created to express through. To express love, wisdom, power, sanity, joy. But since you believe that you are separate from God, then heaven is a place, because that's where God is. If God is not here, then God must be somewhere. And so God is in heaven. Is that right? That's not right. Heaven is where God is, and God is in you, so therefore you've never left heaven. Heaven is a state of mind. It's the fourth dimension. Heaven is the place in which nothing but God is. Joy and love. When you find your peace, you find heaven. When you find love, when you start loving, you've taken the first giant steps toward heaven. And Jesus said the least one in the kingdom of heaven is greater than the most brilliant people. Even John the Baptist, quite a nice person. But he doesn't know who he is. Everything that I've said to you can be reduced to this. The Father and I are one. The universe is a unity, one whole thing, and therefore I am whole. What is the same cannot be different, and what is one cannot have separate parts. A house divided against itself cannot stand. The universe is one whole thing, and I am a part of a whole thing. Now, everyone has entered darkness, yet no one has entered darkness alone, for we have taken with us into the darkness light, the Spirit of light. And any time that we're ready to step out of the darkness, the Spirit will lead us, providing that we will leave the attitudes of darkness behind us. You'll find that darkness is but an attitude, a state of mind, a state of depression, a state of inertia, a state of unwillingness to be led. Your feet firmly planted in a mud hole. And the moment that you're willing to be led out of the darkness, out of the mud hole, that the help is there. Help is always there. You have only but to ask and to become willing to see the light. To become willing to see the light, to become willing to be guided, and it will come. When we choose to avail ourselves of the power that has been given to us and is in us, and the wisdom that is there, that's our experience. And never one time since the universe began has this principle failed. It will never fail you. If you are still living in darkness, it's only because you choose to, looking back over your shoulder at what was, or what could have been, or hanging on to unforgiveness, believing that someone else has been the cause of your problem. Now be certain that any answer to a problem that the Holy Spirit solves will always be one in which no one loses. You see, we've got an idea that somebody's got to lose. Not with God. No one ever loses. Has not every miracle that you've experienced been perfect for everyone concerned? The intellect cannot conceive of a solution in which everybody gains. For example, think of a divorce case. Both sides are looking for an advantage and cannot conceive that even God can split it down the middle. Or even better than that each person can get out of that situation more than half all of what's there. And yet, it can be achieved. Perhaps that's not the best example, unless you're in that fix, but the principle is still the same for you. All that the Father has is yours. And there are no losers. There are no losers when you're in the spiritual life. Everyone is a loser who is not in the spiritual life. An answer which demands the slightest loss to anyone has not resolved the problem, but has added to the problem, made the problem greater, harder to resolve, and more unfair. And it is impossible for the Holy Spirit to solve a problem in an unfair way. And therefore, I must ask for my brother the same thing that I ask for myself. Are you contending with anyone? You have a problem with someone? Then ask God to give the other person the best part of the deal. That's strange thinking. Ask God to give the other person the best part of the deal. Ask God. Say, God, give the other person the best part of the deal. Watch what happens. What you give the other person, you get, but the other person gets it too. Try it. Don't be defensive. Don't try to hang on to one half and let the other person pull the other half. Say, here it is. Now, say this to God. Don't say it to the other person. The other person will take it away from you because they believe that someone has got to lose and it's you. The Holy Spirit's problem solving is the way in which the problem ends and forever. If you and I let go of our willfulness and our limited concepts and become willing to experience mercy, which is God's justice, the problem is solved not only in that particular instance, but for all time. There are many of us who have gone through long periods of time of repeating the problem over and over and over again. It's because the problem never was solved. We kept working with effects. But when the problem is finally solved, it is solved. And the way to solve the problem is never to seek to deprive any other person. Give them complete forgiveness. Pardon everyone. And remember that what is God's belongs to everyone and is that person's due. Can you truly wish or will or pray for the worst person you've ever seen to have all that God has? Do you believe that they deserve it? Is there still an idea in you that really bad people don't deserve anything but punishment? Then let go of that idea. They deserve their due. Now, probably before they get it, they will punish themselves greatly. God will not punish them. We have punished ourselves until we let go of the concept that punishment is necessary, and it isn't. We can at any moment solve a problem by correcting the causes of that problem. The main mistake is the idea that loss is possible and could result in gain for another person. That's really bad news for us. Forgiveness is the world's equivalent of God's justice or mercy. To forgive them is the opening of a doorway to a dynamic movement of spirit, to have no account against anyone, but only to love them and to wish for them that very good that we would seek for ourselves. And also forgive the past and let it go. Have you done something in the past that you would not have done? You still look back? Then you keep an ancient memory before your eyes. If you've not forgiven another person for what they did, if there's still something back there that you call bad, because it shaped your life and made you sorrowful, or if something someone else did still shapes your thinking about that person, remember that he who lives in memories is unaware of where he is. And forgive the past and let it go. There's no need to repeat again a journey that was over long ago. And if we keep living in the past, we will not only repeat a journey taken many times, but we will never live in the land of miracles. I love the land of miracles. I love living in a life, in days in which miracles occur. But if my good is either in my past or in my destiny and my future, I will not live in the consciousness of miracles. All sickness comes from separation. The sense of separation. We cannot be separated from our good or from God, but we can have the sense of separation. And the moment that we release that sense of separation and become a whole person, that which we already are, sickness will tend to go away. And this is true because it's the will of God that you have and be and experience everything that God has planned for you. When you were created, God created you as everything. And that's strange. You can only have, therefore, what you become. Having is the result of being. Therefore, my effort, my responsibility, my action is to become what I already am. And if I become a certain kind of person, I will experience the life that is the equivalent for that level of consciousness. So having is not a grasping, pulling back into my life that which is external to myself. Having is becoming a person, whole and healthy and happy and alive and enthusiastic and prosperous. And then I will experience or have these effects in my life. To use the power that God has given you as He would have it used is natural. It is not arrogant to be created as you are, the spiritual being. It's important that we remember this, because sometimes we think, what right do I have to believe that I have these special qualities? These special qualities are not greater than qualities that another person has. There's not one person here that is superior to any being who's ever lived upon this earth. We are all the same. We are created of the same substance. But it is not arrogant for one person to begin to believe and to utilize, to take advantage of these special spiritual qualities. That does not mean that you'll ever take advantage of another person. The more power you have, the safer you are. Did you know that? A truly powerful being is a loving being. It will never harm anyone. You don't have to be afraid of power or strength. It's only weakness that would hurt you, yours or another person's weakness. Strength and power, spiritual strength. Be not content with future happiness. Future happiness has no meaning and is not your just reward. Now, happiness. You have cause for freedom now, for happiness now. And the Holy Spirit's purpose is yours now. Should not His happiness be yours as well now? Now. The holiest of all the spots on earth is where an ancient hatred has become a present love. One of life's grandest experiences is to watch a person be transformed. And I have been privileged to see this happen scores of times, hundreds of times. I've seen it happen in many of you who are here in this room with me. I have seen you when you despised yourself and didn't particularly care for a bunch of other people either. You didn't like where you'd been, where you were, where you thought you were going. And I've seen you change, dramatically change. And that's holy ground where you stand. There is something so exciting, so exhilarating, so life-changing. When that happens to you, it happens to the world around you. It's a magnificent experience. Do not think that it is important that you be good. Remember, Jesus said, "Why do you call me good? There's but one that is good, and that one is God." Sometimes religion has seemed to require certain goodness from us that we've never had. It doesn't make any difference how rotten you were or might still be. What's important is the transformation, that energy of change, the willingness to change, and the excitement of change, and the letting go of old ideas and the stopping of those old responses to life. I tell you, it's fascinating to see a person have this spiritual experience, because it is of the Spirit. It is an activity of Spirit. When you see this happen to a person, you have seen God in action. Beware of the temptation to perceive yourself unfairly treated. Great temptation to see that somehow injustice was done to us. This I mentioned to you a moment ago. Power cannot oppose. True power does not oppose anything, because there's only one power. When we're connected with God, there's no other power to oppose. Spiritual people are not in opposition to other persons. A power who, wholly limitless, has come not to destroy, not to punish, but to receive its own. You see, punishment is the experience that comes from the separation from power and from love. Our punishment is when we are separated from true strength and true wisdom. But that power has come to be your experience. You do not know the peace of power that opposes nothing, yet no other kind of power exists in this universe. In quietness are all things answered, and is every problem quietly resolved. In conflict, there can be no answer and no resolution. Have you ever solved a problem? Have you ever won an argument in conflict? Have you ever won a battle with a person? Have you? One time ever? Did you ever walk away and got the last word in and that was the word that won? Never. You never shall. It's only in quietness. And quietness is being still. It means more than that. It's in that fourth dimensional state. Yet if God gave an answer, there must be a way in which your problems are resolved. For what He wills has already been done. Thus it must be that time is not involved. And every problem can be answered now. It's important to believe that every problem can be answered now, that time has nothing to do with it. Nor does another power. All the energy, all the wisdom that's necessary is here. And yet it must be that you recognize that in your normal human state of mind that solutions are impossible. Therefore, God must have given you a way of reaching to another state of mind in which the answer is already there. And that's what the holy instant is. That's what the eternal now, that now moment is. It's a moment in which you can reach a state of consciousness in which there's peace. The sense of separation doesn't mean that you go to sleep and do not see the problems that are there, but you're disconnected from them and you're connected with the solution. Attempt to solve no problem, but within the holy instant's surety. For there the problem will be answered and resolved, and outside of it there will be no solution. The only way to heal is to be healed. Miracles do not need your help, but you're needed so the miracle can begin. Accept the miracle of healing. Begin to believe. Ask for. And get a miracle started. And it'll keep on its own. You don't have to make it work. We want to make it work. We want to understand. You don't have to. The holy instant is the miracle's abiding place. Suffering is an emphasis upon all that the world has done to injure you. But you can escape from suffering. And the way that you escape from suffering is to become aware that the only person who has ever made you suffer is you. This is folly to the intellect. The intellect knows how many other persons, how many other things have made us suffer. Now, if you want to experience a miracle, say to yourself, I have done this thing, and it is this thing that I would undo. It is I who have made my life this way. But I do not have the power to undo it. I have the power to make a decision and to ask that it be undone. I have the power to forgive every person on this earth. As a matter of fact, our assignment in this week is to forgive everybody for everything and to forgive ourselves. Will you do it? And to remember time and time again, if something goes wrong, you did it, and therefore you forgive them all. And to watch the miracle happen. If you'll do it, you'll have the grandest week of your life. Because that's the way it really is. God bless you.